Are you trying to help me find the person who took your daughter? Are you trying to stand in my way? I can't tell.
Ramsey attorney Lee Foreman was seen giving DeMuth a back rub during a break.
Oh my God, what is this? This is... Calm down. But just the fact that somebody did that to an innocent, defenseless little girl is enough to make you go to war for somebody like JonBenét. Okay, so last time we were looking at part 1 of the Vanity Fair article. I broke it up into like several pieces. So I'm going to go through part 2 right now and see what we can get into. So here we go.
From the magazine, October 1997 issue by Anne Louise Bardock. October 1, 1997, Vanity Fair. JonBenét Ramsey, Missing Innocence, Part 2. During a 3-hour interview with me in June, Alex Hunter, an affable man of 61, acknowledged that much of the Ramseys' post-murder behavior was unusual. No question about it. They lawyered up early on, he said. Normally, it is true, such victims throw themselves at the police and district attorney, offering and begging for information. The fact that they did not...
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. It's normal. So I'm not up here. You guys are not out there just thinking up random stuff like, oh, you know, people could do whatever they want to do. Okay, yeah, exactly. So the DA is on the same page, and that normally in any normal circumstance, and I again, we understand that people can do whatever they want. Every situation is not going to be normal, but normally the families would be working and throwing themselves at the police. But here we have the DA, the headman on the case, saying, yeah, man, they got to it pretty quickly. Why? Why did you go out and get lawyers pretty quickly? Why? Like, what? Let me put it like this. What did you do, or what could be the optics that made you say, you know what, not only do we need to consider this, and I'm talking about early. I'm not saying that you should have never gone and gotten lawyers. I'm talking about early. Why did you get lawyers so early? If we remember part 1, that got lawyers on like the 27th, the following evening of the 27th, when Linda Arndt went back. They already had their lawyers. And when I'm saying they already had their lawyers, Patsy had her own lawyer and John had his own. And we're talking about right after the Christmas holiday, with high-powered attorneys who would have probably been out of town. John and Patsy Ramsey, all through the night, I don't know who made the call or who did what, but they were cognizant enough and aware enough to send Mike Bynum out to go call the necessary people. And Mike Bynum knew just who to call in order to get Patsy her own protection, and then John his own protection. And John was comprehensive enough to say, okay, I know I need my own, and then I know Patsy needs her own. I understand that. Patsy understands that through the Valium, right? Through the drugs, they were both cognizant enough to understand that. So we're all on the same page. Thank you, DA Hunter.
Not cooperate is most compelling, but it's not really evidence. Hunter asked me if I knew that Patsy Ramsey was a college graduate and had talent as a painter. He passed on the information that she ran the science fair at her son's school, and that she had impressed lawyers with her outspokenness when she served on a recent jury. She was fused with JonBenét, said Hunter. It was more than mere love. As for John Ramsey, whom he referred to as an Iceman, he wondered a lot.
If it's more than mere love, what is it? What you got? You got somebody that will go to the ends of the earth. I may not do everything for everybody else, or there's certain things, you know, I love everyone. Maybe I'm a loving person, but there are certain things that I hold in high regard for this individual. There's a different level for this individual that I keep sacred. Okay.
Out whether someone as smart as Ramsey would write such a long note.
Yeah.
Toward the end of our talk, he said, "These are not bad people." Then, hastily, he added, "Of course, we know that good people can do bad things."
Thank you.
When I asked Hunter whether pressure from the Haddon team had gotten to him, he said, "I'm in the first year of my 7th term and have zero interest in running for state dog catcher or congressman. So this business about me sinking my political fortune in nonsense, I don't feel any intimidation. So this business about me, someone as smart as Ramsey would write such a long note." Toward the end of our talk, he said, "These are not bad people." Then, hastily, he added, "Of course, we know that good people can do bad things."
Mm-hmm.
When I asked Hunter whether pressure from the Haddon team had gotten to him, he said, "I'm in the first year of my 7th term and have zero interest in running for state dog catcher or congressman. So this business about me sinking my political fortune in nonsense, I don't feel any intimidation." However, one insider said,
Trying to understand that line because he lost me a little bit on what he said. I said, "Are you concerned about Haddon?" Haddon is just a lawyer. Now, Haddon has political connections. And then he responded with, "I'm not trying to be a political dog catcher or what have you. I'm in my 7th term." Basically, I take that to mean I'm in my 7th term, man. 7th term, man. I don't have to worry about anyone or anything. So that part makes sense. But I'm trying to see how that part, if he would have just kind of left that part and just, cut straight to, "I'm not worried about being intimidated by anyone." If that would have been the connection. But the part where he lost me was the part about being a political dog catcher. Maybe he's saying that I'm not interested in doing what Hal Haddon is doing, which is the lead attorney for John's side, I think, or I don't know who he's representing. I think he's representing John. But, maybe a political dog catcher is somebody who goes out and is, somebody who talks to a bunch of political guys and has to politic a lot, senators and things like that, and congressmen and whatnot, which is what Hal Haddon is doing. So, okay, that makes sense.
says that Hunter is twice removed from the case, and Hunter admits that he depends on Peter Hofstrom for his information. He's the one that's keeping me advised. He's what I consider to be the lead guy, which some say is the problem. The burly Hofstrom is an old friend of several of the Ramseys' lawyers, and he often socializes with Haddon's partner, Brian Morgan. Confronted by police officials about such a seeming impropriety, Hofstrom reportedly fumed. "I'm not stopping my breakfasts with Brian."
I guess I'm a little confused. This is one of the biggest cases that you've probably seen, and you're already in a big mess with everything that the Ramseys are doing as the DA. Wouldn't it be also too then? I know we're putting a lot of blame on the police, but wouldn't it also too be on the DA who mishandled this case? Because DA Hunter is, I guess he's saying he's removed from it in terms of I get my direct report is Hofstrom. Okay. But that means that you're working on something else. That means that you're dedicating, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I guess I'm just saying that you're dedicating your time to other things. So if you're dedicating your time to other things, in this case, maybe it was in general that nobody thought this case was going to go to the heights that it did, especially in the media and amongst the culture. Um, so I'm just kind of confused in that term. So yeah.
I've known him for 20 years.
Well, and I guess I'm just stuck at, why are you not paying attention? And good for Hofstrom, but why are you not paying attention enough? Because that, I guess that would take away the authority or any authoritative language that you could use to say, okay, this is what we're not going to do. We're not going to do this. I'm not going to go forward with the grand jury decision. Then that means that the grand jury decision may not have come from Hunter. It may have come from Hofstrom. And Hunter just depended on Hofstrom for that. Because if you're already removed and you don't know what's going on, then Hofstrom is the main guy, and Hofstrom is over here having dinner with people from the Ramseys legal team. And again, you know, the legal community, I understand, is probably pretty small. Everybody knows everybody. Look, Hofstrom's deal is probably like, man, I'm not trying to compromise the case. This is just my friend. We don't talk about any of this stuff. We can agree to disagree on things. So I definitely get that. So I'm not saying that you have to stop breakfast, but given the optics of everything, I'm just a little concerned, that you are allowing this man to sit at the table with the Ramseys attorney. It's just a little concerned. That's it.
Years. Pat Burke, one of Patsy's lawyers, has also been cited, says an investigator, standing at the door of the off-limits war room, chatting with Hofstrom and DeMuff. And when investigators finally coaxed the Ramsey team into having its clients provide handwriting samples, it was done not at the police station, but at Hofstrom's house. As if it were a afternoon tea. Assisting Hofstrom is retired Detective Lou Smith, described by Hunter as an ace and the fox, but by his critics, assisting Hofstrom. And when investigators finally coaxed the Ramsey team into having its clients provide handwriting samples, it was done not at the police station, but at Hofstrom's house. As if it were a afternoon tea.
And I know first and foremost, according to the police reports, I think Whitson was saying that he actually asked for handwriting samples on the spot. I'm not sure if the Ramseys wrote anything out. I think he more so asked for, hey, do you got anything with your handwriting on it? So I can just we can match. I don't think they actually sat down with the whole, let's write your hand, let's write out the ransom note. That's number one. Number two, here we see the Ramseys pulling the investigation into their wheelhouse. And again, I mean, that's, I'm a proponent of, sort of working life to your benefit. So I definitely get it. If you don't understand something, if you're in a class, if you're at work, on the job, whatever, you're in a conversation, if you don't understand something, working to your benefit, try to find ways to understand it so that you can be effective in the world. And that's exactly what the Ramseys are doing. They're saying, okay, I don't feel comfortable down at the police station, so can you guys come here? And again, this is not a problem, but like in the early stages of this thing, you're already pulling the cops to say, if we're going to do anything, it's going to be here, so that everything that the cops pick up has to be moved. It has to be shifted to the Ramseys' residence, or wherever the Ramseys are. It has to be shifted to DeMuth's house. So everybody can whatever, however we want to, because sometimes you get in these environments, and when we think back to Linda Arndt, you get in these environments and it's like, man, I don't have this tool. I don't have that tool. We can't kind of get you out of your element and your comfort zone. Sometimes, in this case, the cops are not really sure what they're walking into. And I know cops do interviews at people's homes sometimes. So that's not out of the ordinary. It's not a problem. But, given the hindsight view, just not a big deal. But it's just like, okay, so you're kind of working. We got a DA that's kind of removed, letting somebody else handle it. But this same guy is having lunch with the Ramsey lawyer, and then this same guy is conducting sort of interviews at his home for the Ramseys. So I'm trying to understand what side you're on, I guess.
Assisting Hofstrom is retired Detective Lou Smith, described by Hunter as an ace and the fox, but by his critics in the police department as a delusional old man. Smith quickly came to believe that the Ramseys were good Christians, incapable of committing such a crime. Both DA and police sources say that it was Hofstrom who argued to provide the Ramseys with copies of their original statements and police reports if they would sit down and talk with police. These actions prompted a firestorm of criticism from legal experts. The district attorney's office, the Ramsey legal team, and the Boulder police have all refused numerous requests for responses to this story. Assisting Hofstrom is retired Detective Lou Smith, described by Hunter as an ace and the fox, but by his critics in the police department as a delusional old man. Smith quickly came to believe that the Ramseys were good Christians.
Not your business. You can be a Christian and kill somebody. I'm not speaking against Christians. I'm just saying things can get out of hand. And depending on where you are in any spiritual journey, you might have some things that you haven't dealt with yet or conquered yet or overcome. So don't give me that Christian stuff. Come on now. I don't want to hear nothing about religiosity. I don't want to hear nothing about spirituality. And this is what I'm saying, because it's like, these guys are good Christian people. How could they? I'm not asking you about that, man. I'm saying because it blocks you. Because now as you're going to go search things, let's take Officer French, for example. And I'm not picking on Officer French, but this is what I'm saying. When Officer French was first told that, when he first showed up and they said, hey, this is a kidnapping, and he believed it, that prevented him. And again, I'm not criticizing him, but that prevented him from doing what he was supposed to do in terms of searching the whole house in the context of whatever, right? In the context of a homicide, in the context of an abduction or a robbery or burglary. It stopped him from doing that, and he solely focused on the kidnapping aspect. And the problem with that is there is a lane, there is a path that is associated with the kidnapping sort of abduction aspect. If we are looking for a kidnapping or an abduction, then that means that there are certain principles and perspectives and tasks or tools that we use to go down this path. What do I mean by that? I mean that, as French said, when I looked at the door downstairs in the wine cellar, I didn't open it up because I didn't think there was an exit point. Well, why not? Because there could have been a window there. Did somebody tell you? And that's my question. Did somebody tell you that there was no window in there? What alerted you? Because when you first got down there, you have a window at the edge of the storage room in the playroom, in the train room. You have a window there, and I think you also have a window in the other storage room. I think, if I'm remembering the schema correctly, I could be wrong, but anyways, at any rate, you have several windows there. So I guess I'm kind of confused as to, like, why would you assume that there is no window? And also too, I think his second assumption was, well, this thing is locked from the outside, so nobody could have gone in. Yeah, but still, like, just in the because I've seen cops do this, in the interest of being thorough, why didn't you just unlock it and open the door? You know what I mean? It is not guaranteed that JonBenét was there at that time. I'm not saying that. It's not guaranteed that she was there, but I'm just saying the cops could have taken a look for themselves And they probably wouldn't have had to depend on Fleet White so much and say, "What did you see?" Or they would have been able to say, "Okay, hey, man, I didn't see anything. Whitson didn't see anything. We just checked in there to make sure." So I think there should have been a little bit of thoroughness in that, right? And so very from the very beginning, like there's this like shift of what's the energy? There's this energy of I'll have to find. I'm not going to take up too much time. I have to find the word to describe it, but it's like this energy of mist. There's like a mist, if that makes sense. Like if you've ever had like some sort of dream or something like that. If you ever had like a dream and the dream is kind of like hazy or misty, and it's like you can see, but there's like you can't really run. You can't really do everything that you want to do because there's a lot of mistiness. And that's what I'm feeling here. It's a lot of mistiness around this to where at first it's innocent, but it can go bad pretty quickly. It can go bad really quickly just because people are being like deterred. They're being stopped. Like it's like a house of, it's not a house of cards. I can't get the word to describe it, but it's like a house with all these doors is what I'm imagining. And an individual, say an investigator, is walking in to investigate, and there's an open door at the very end of the hallway. Okay, cool. The investigator goes down there to the end of the hallway and opens that door there where there's something completely different in that room. But the next investigator comes in and that door is closed by the sort of ruler of the house. And then this door on the left hand is open, but the investigator goes there. And so there's this sort of like traffic control, if I can call it. This is like traffic control that's sending people into different doors so that people don't have the same story. And it's sort of like this manipulation in a sense. It's like this removed, if I can say it. I'm trying to find the word. There's like this removed manipulation, like there's like a puppeteer, right? Is how I'm trying to describe it. A puppeteer is opening and moving levers and controls. You go here, you go here, you go in the store, you go, so that it creates that perfect crime scenario, right? Everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but why did you go in this door and I couldn't get in this door? I knocked on that door. I couldn't go there. Oh, well, I went right in. Well, what did you see? Well, nobody else can verify that because I was the only one in there. I mean, I went in this door. I was stuck in that door and I was trapped for an hour and I wanted to get out, but I couldn't. That's the kind of mistiness that it's just like, without even trying to blame the Ramseys, it's like, man, something's not right here. Something is going on that's not right here.
Capable of committing such a crime. Both DA and police sources say that it was Hofstrom who argued to provide the Ramseys with copies of their original statements and police reports if they would sit down and talk with police. These actions prompted a firestorm of criticism from legal experts. The district attorney's office, the Ramsey legal team, and the Boulder police have all refused numerous requests for responses to this story. One day in early June, I was contacted by a source with first-hand knowledge of the investigation. I arranged to meet with him in a parking lot outside Boulder. Edgy and fearful, he said he was speaking to me only as a last resort. He said that a flow of privileged, confidential information critical to the case against the Ramseys has been leaked from the DA's office to the Ramseys' lawyers with the efficiency as a sieve. He said that the Ramseys have been provided with copies of all the most sensitive and critical police and detective reports, as well as reproductions of both the ransom note and the practice note found the same day. Haddon's team even persuaded Hofstrom and Hunter to give them private viewings of the original ransom notes and the actual ligature and groat. The Ramseys' best defense attorneys are right inside Hunter's office, he mumbled bitterly. The sharing of such information says famed 25-year-old FBI veteran Greg McCrary, is unprecedented and unprofessional and an obstruction of justice.
Obstruction indeed. And it's cheating. You could make the case that this is just an article. You could make that case. This is just an article, holds no weight, holds no water. No, absolutely not. But the thing that gets me, why I refer to this article, the thing that gets me is that when John and Patsy Ramsey were in the deposition and Darnay Hoffman was asking John Ramsey about the handwriting, and he was saying, did your handwriting experts give you any information? The Ramseys weren't trying to say anything. They were denying that they had a PR person. They were denying anything. They were saying, well, we went to him, and they never really took ownership of, well, we have people on our team for that. They just said we went to, as if these services were independent. That's how they sort of framed it. But it was interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, if the ransom note, and I know the ransom note was taken in the police evidence, and John Ramsey said, hey man, but Linda Arndt brought that back to me. Okay, so maybe you kept it and turned it over to your attorneys. That's understandable. But different things like the police report, learning about the pineapples, learning about the boots and different suspects on the case, all while being on the outside. And Mike Cain was asking, how did you get this information? Where did that information come from? And Hoffman was asking sort of the same question in a different way about the handwriting analysis, saying, okay, what is making you so confident that it's not Patsy? What is making you so, because Hoffman was like, man, I know some people who are saying it's Patsy and your wife has not been ruled out. What is making you so confident that it's not your wife, or people are saying that it has nothing to do with you, or you can argue? What is giving you the ability to argue with me is the question. And from right here, if we understand it in this way, it's because everything that is coming through the police office or the precinct is being funneled out to you. Even if it's meaningless information, it's all being funneled out to you. So basically, when I say something as a cop, if I say something to you, you're already ready. You've already thought about the answer. Your mind is already primed about stuff, right? You can see a clear difference. And as you've been seeing for years in the interviews, you can see a clear difference in, okay, John and Patsy have a script that they're going off of. Obviously, in the CNN interview, that's the most cited one that we talk about. In the CNN interview with, John mouthing to Patsy what to say. And it's like, okay, how did you know these questions? Or how did you know exactly what to say and when to say it? Because I have no problem with you memorizing something. But my thing on that interview was, how did you know when to say it? That's what's throwing me off. How did you know when? It's not like the questions were out of place. It's almost like they gave you a list of questions in order, and we show the interviewer off of camera, and he has a paper and he's just kind of going down the list of questions. So he's giving you the ability to kind of go through the questions, and you can talk at length, at any length. So you can take up as much time as you want, but you can go through all the questions and kind of look at them and say, okay, I know my answer to that. Okay, so what we're going to say here is we're going to say this. Okay, I got my answer to this. Okay, so, and you're kind of comparing notes on that. John and Patsy are kind of comparing notes of what they're going to say. But when I think about the manipulation of this, when I think about the manipulation of that conversation with John and telling Patsy what to say, that really concerns me to a level of, what are you capable of? Like, what are you capable of right now? Because we see Helgoth ends up with a wound to the side of the head on the wrong side, boots taser, videotapes, everything that you need right out in public. Just walking around with this stuff. Your guys breaking his house and steal it, obtaining evidence illegally. What are you capable of? What are you doing? Like, what's happening? Because when I look at what you tell me in your book, you say, I knew I could do something about Patsy's cancer, or I couldn't do anything about my daughter, Beth, but I knew I could do something about JonBenét. But then you come back and say, there's nothing I could have done about JonBenét. But I know now I can do something about Patsy, or I knew I had to, or when you're in the plane, or I knew I had to do this, so I knew that I could turn it. You're flying in a plane going down. I would be scared to death that I was going to lose my life. But you thought in that moment, how am I going to be able to brag to my friends about this? It's like your answers are always off. And it's like, I mean, you can say anything you want, but it's just throwing me off just a little bit. There is a lot of turning of the story. There's a lot of information that you get behind the scenes, and you're telling me that you don't, but every time I come, you're ready for the questions that I'm asking. And it's like, this is private information. How'd you get that? This is information like you, and you don't have a good relationship with the police. How would you be getting police information? How would you understand? Because it's like, okay, no, we have a copy of the ransom note. Yeah, but how would you understand the direction that the police are going? Where's that coming from? And that's where we say, okay, lunch with Brian and Hal Haddon, I think it was the second one, lunch with the Ramsey attorneys is not a big deal, because obviously it's the attorney community, it's the legal community. That's not a big deal, but it becomes a big deal when I have to step back and say, Hofstrom, are you sharing information with their side? Because I know we're giving out little stuff in here and there, but are you sharing information with their side? Because it's like, oh, well, do you have proof? Well, you're doing it in the dark. So I wouldn't have proof, no. But it's just some of the things that you say. Because over here, you're very prepared. But when I hit you with this conversation about the boot, something you don't have access to, when I hit you with some stuff, from the proceedings of the grand jury, that catches you off guard. And then you scramble. How do you scramble? Why do you scramble? That's interesting.
It's criminal. It's possible you could make a case for prosecutorial malfeasance. It completely compromises the investigation. On January 4th, one of the Ramseys' private investigators left a message on McCrary's answering machine asking him to join their team as profiler. McCrary had his secretary call to decline, he says, because on a ratio of 12-1, child murders are committed by parents or a family member. In this case, you also have an elaborate staging, the ransom note, the placement of the child's body, and I have never in my career seen or heard about a staging where it was not a family murder or someone very close to the family. Just the note alone told me the killer was in the family or close to it. They asked me to take a polygraph, says former Ramsey friend Jeff Merrick.
Hold on. Hold on. This is the you asked, you said, we need somebody independent. Why didn't you allow the FBI to get involved? Okay, let's say that the BPD didn't involve the FBI. Let's say they didn't. Okay. However, in some way, shape, or form, the FBI is already telling you what they would do, and they're telling you, if I was on this case, I would stay on your trail. That's what the FBI is saying. The FBI is saying, I am staying on the Ramsey trail because on a ratio of 12-1, most of the time it's the family who has done this. That's 92%, like we talked about in the last video. Most of the time, the family has done it. And especially when you look at the ransom note, the family has done it. And especially when you look intentionally at what's happening here, it's going to be the family. Everything that they're doing, they've lawyered up. That's weird. All of your behavior, the cover up, that's going to be the family. Most of the times, that's what the FBI profiler is saying. And so even without talking to the FBI extensively, let's just say they didn't. Let's just say that the Boulder police didn't talk to the FBI extensively. Okay, let's choose to believe that. They are already locked in. They're both on the same page. Both agencies are on the same page saying, I think it's the family. BPD is saying, I think it's the family. FBI is saying, we think it's the family too. CBI is like, well, we got questions about the family as well. And that's a good enough reason for why the BPD continued to stay on the Ramsey case all this time. Period.
I said, sure, no problem. As soon as John Ramsey takes one. According to the confidential source, an unedited tape of the Ramseys' January 1 CNN appearance in Atlanta, which had been obtained by a court order in March, was also handed over to Haddon's office. But Hofstrom turned down repeated police requests to subpoena the records of the Ramseys' toll phone calls and credit card purchases. The source also explained the delay in the Ramsey police interviews. The Ramseys' lawyers had initially demanded that Patsy and John be interviewed at the same time, that the interview not exceed 90 minutes, that all previous police statements made by the Ramseys and others be provided to them, and that Pete Hofstrom be present throughout.
Why? Why? What are you doing? What the heck are you doing? Hofstrom has to be here. What are all these stipulations? Hofstrom has to be here. We got to do it together. It has to be 90 minutes. Why? Get the FBI to help you. Why? What? We got to do it at this house. Give me all your records that you have. Why? What are you doing? That does not make sense. Y'all up to something. Y'all are up to something. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. This is early. This is early. And we are already up to something. Your attorneys are doing what you paid them to do. They earned that money because they ran interference. And it has nothing to do with the truth at this point. It has everything to do with the lawyers for the Ramseys being able to run interference. According to this article, if we're taking this article at face value, the Ramseys were able to run interference. And we know that could be some truth to it. Why do we say that? Because again, if we go back to the Ramseys sitting in the police interviewing with Lou Smith, and Ramsey had his attorney by his side. You can go back and see it. Patsy sitting in there talking to Lou Smith, had the attorney present. Sitting there with Darnay Hoffman, of course, I mean, Lynn Wood has to be there. But Lynn took a sort of varying role in being in his communication. You know, he was more so the protector of Patsy. But in some cases, when John Ramsey was caught off guard, you can see that Lynn Wood talked a little bit more. He came a little bit more alive. And we can see that consistency when we go to the transcript when Patsy was asked about the boots from the grand jury proceedings. And then Lynn Wood went crazy. Y'all are setting something. Y'all are setting me up. I feel set up. I feel like y'all are setting me up for something. This is the point where the cops needed to take a step back and say, man, we're being set up. Something's happening. We may not be able to see the entire playing field, but we need to think more critically about what's happening next because we are being set up. And I can't help but feel as I'm going through this stuff that I am being set up. I feel like there is something bigger than me, and I feel like there is something sort of surrounding me, stopping me, saying intentionally and saying, I don't care what you think. I don't care how immoral. I don't care how unethical it is. This is happening. That's what I feel right now.
FBI came in and looked at the demand list given to the DA from the Ramseys and said, "No way. You are not doing this interview." Early on, the police had invited the FBI to assist, but according to the source, the DA's team disregarded everything the FBI expert suggested. The DA blew up with the police, but they canceled and endured the wrath of the media, the Ramseys, and the DA's office. And the FBI stood up for them. According to McCrary, if there's a tutorial on how not to conduct an interview, this would be it. The interview finally took place on April 30, 4 months after the murder. After being pounded for refusing to cooperate with the police, the Ramseys gave in to separate interviews, but they held fast to their demand for a copy of the entire police file in the presence of Hofstrom. Patrick Burke and one of his private investigators sat next to Patsy, who answered questions for 6.5 hours. John Ramsey was accompanied by Brian Morgan and another private investigator for his 90-minute session. The questioning was conducted by detectives Tom Trujillo and Steve Thomas. Prior to the Ramsey interviews, a show-and-tell presentation had been arranged by the Ramsey lawyers to convince Hunter that their clients had not written the ransom note. According to police reports, Patsy had given 2 accounts of the morning's events. Miss Ramsey told me that she had gone into JonBenét's room at about 5:45 to wake her up, Officer French wrote. Finding the room empty, she went down the spiral back stairs, where she discovered the note. Later, she said she found the note on the spiral back stairs when she went down to make coffee, and then ran to JonBenét's room. The note was written in upper and lowercase printed letters on paper, torn from a legal pad found in the house. Also discovered on the pad was the practice note beginning, "Mr. and Ms. Ramsey." Kidnappers, says McCrary, do not spend hours at a crime scene after murdering their victims, composing letters.
Yeah.
The actual ransom note reads,
They ain't gonna do it. I don't have time. Like, just based off the strength of that alone, I can't do it. I don't have time to be sitting here, writing a ransom note. I'm trying to get up out of here. Because again, if we go back to the idea that, man, my motive is to get in and get out. If it's the thrill of it, or if it's the crime of opportunity, that's a different set of rules than somebody passionately unaliving somebody. Come on, talk to me. We got to stay in the boxes. We got to put the boxes where the boxes need to be. Y'all out here demanding full access to the police files. No. For what? So y'all can hit me with some bull crap? Talking about some, I think I heard about a pineapple from the tabloids or somewhere, and there's a picture. Maybe you can. Where'd you see that picture? Where'd you hear about this story? Think somebody bought it to me. You bought it to you? How? You are the family. And of course, it's easy that somebody could catch wind before you catch it. I get that. But all of these sources that you mentioned, the newspaper, the guy on the corner, overheard some people talking about it. And then they all brought it back to you. Like, so you just locked yourself in a room and and shut the lights off and didn't hear anything. Come off it. Because going back to the interview with Darnay Hoffman, you let some things slip. If I can remember the phrasing correctly, when Darnay asked you and said, well, how did you find out about the ransom note or the writing analysis and stuff like that? were you primed? How would you think that my client was a suspect or what have you? How did you know so much about it? Were you primed by your um, by your counsel? And John said, no. I'm just saying it off of the strength that I know my wife. My wife didn't write that. Just off of that strength. So I know you're full of crap. Is essentially what John said at first. But then Darnay came back and pushed a little bit more, and then and said, well, how would you know that? Because if we have these people saying, we have these experts saying, how are you referring to so surely that it's the case? Because you're trying to refer to experts. Did you receive a report from an expert from your camp? And John said, no, I haven't looked at any reports. And then as he continued to ask him, Lynn Wood jumped in and said, oh, you're assuming that he didn't receive that advice from counsel. Darnay already asked that question. He already asked that question. And then John came back to John, and John was like, yeah, well, I have my attorneys that I listen to. So you are getting information from your attorneys. So that begs the question, what information are your attorneys getting then? Because y'all sitting there going to lunch. Come on, don't I know how the game goes. I know y'all from man to man, from attorney to attorney, from law enforcement to another, one law enforcement individual to another. This is what's going on from our side, man. Don't tell anybody I told you. And now you made a friend. So Hofstrom has to be there all the time. And you limit your time. It's like, oh, we'll answer any question for 90 minutes, for an hour and 90 minutes. Well, if you talk at length about one thing, if you deflect at one thing, if somebody asks you, hey, what about this? And you say, it ain't me, go look somewhere else. And we talk about that in circles, you didn't answer the question. And that stops me from getting to the other questions. And what you'll notice, if you go back and look at some of the interviews, you'll notice that several times at least, the attorney said, man, I got a good bit. I got a good amount left to go over. We just spent an hour and a half or 30, however long, talking about nothing. So that I have a good bit of notes that we need to get through. So you got to stay here because we got to go through these notes. Man, this deflection stuff, man.
Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She's safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate sized attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police or FBI, will result in your daughter's being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned, we are familiar with the law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand 100% chance.
If you are dealing with a kidnapper who is well put together enough to track law enforcement, then we are dealing with somebody who doesn't need any help in deflection. They already got it. So the more that you do not come down to the police station, and the more that you wait to turn over things, like you wait 4 years to take a lie detector test so we can rule you out, right? Well, you got my DNA. Okay, we got your DNA. We appreciate it. We're going to test that. And we're going to try to use that. But we got to make sure everything else lines up, because 12-1 is pretty steep. We got to make sure everything lines up, because you could have contaminated the crime scene. There's many things that you could have done. We note, one of the things that's funny is, like, we note that you bought your child shoes from High Tech. You don't remember that. And funny enough, there are no High Tech boots in your house. Where did they all go? One day you guys were wearing High Tech boots, and then all of a sudden nobody has High Tech boots anymore. Where did those shoes go? Nobody says, oh, those old things with the compass, I threw those things away, man. And another thing I am lost on. If this person is truly a kidnapper that came in and snuck in and swooped in, why are you not still wearing your wire? Like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. came and went, oh, it's the next day. It's on the 27th. Well, why did you leave the house? That's what's confusing me. If you are supposed to be there on the 26th or the 27th, why did you leave? Nobody was in a rush to stay at that house and wait for a phone call from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. John went and checked the mail. Okay, if we thinking outside the box, then when you went downstairs and said that window's broken, let me call the cops down. And you know what? While we're at it, let me run back upstairs and say, hey, Linda, there's a window broken down here. What do you think? While we're at it, let me just stay hooked up. John was ready to get unhooked from that, from the equipment, so he can run downstairs and check out the basement. Because something tells me that as the cops take their methodology to the next level and they encroach, because the cops are coming, they're like, hey, yo, we're going to use everything we got. We're going to canvass the area. We're going to put you under surveillance in terms of, and we're going to tap the phones. We're going to do all that. We're going to go search around the house, try to make sure the house isn't entirely secure. It could be the case that if you are feeling pressured, that house gets smaller. And if the house gets smaller, then guess what? I might feel like I have to do something drastic. So I leave and I come back for an hour. I leave for an hour and a half and I come back and I say, well, hey, here's the mail. Maybe the killer got to, or the kidnapper got to the mail or something like that. Okay, cool. But maybe the kidnapper is also going to call between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Who knows? Maybe it was a test to say, I'm just trying to see if you're going to call the cops or not. Maybe you blew it by calling the cops. What about that? Nobody addressed that. Even on the 26th, let's say, well, it was supposed to be the 27th. Okay, even if it was the 27th, why are you over at your friend's house when you know that you're expecting a phone call? Because you were never expecting a phone call. Because somehow, some way, these people that were holding your daughter changed their mind and left JonBenét in the house. So now we got to start reeling it in. Why would JonBenét be left in the house? But not left in the house tied up in a room, unalived. Why was JonBenét left in the house unalived, and not just unalived by mistake, like, oh, boom, a hit to the head, in the way she, like, just like a gash to the head, like somebody did something quick and ran. An attack that was intimate, where you got the rope and then you have whatever object was used. How?
Chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You're not the only fat cat around. So don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John. Victory. SBTC. Investigators question why Ramsey seemed to stall over getting the ransom money if he truly believed that the note had been written by dangerous kidnappers. The money never left the bank, says one insider dryly. Out of the 74 names submitted for testing.
If you knew, come on, talk. Oh, I was trying to get I was trying to get I was trying to get the money together. Okay, then why isn't it here? I'm confused. Why is the money, if you truly believe the kidnapper has already taken your daughter, why haven't you went and got the money? Huh? If you had enough time between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. to have that money ready, Mr. Kidnapper, I got your $118 million. You know what? I give you 150K. I'll give you 500K because look, we know you're good for it. Why do I say that? Because when the cops said, you know what, we'll give 10K or whatever, the Ramseys came and said, we'll give 50K. And then the cops said, we'll give 100. And then the Ramseys came back and said, we'll give 500K. I'm exaggerating. But if y'all are willing to do that for your daughter, if y'all are willing to do that for a reward to find your daughter after the fact, then before the fact, before y'all go to the media right now, Mr. Kidnapper, I pull out $500,000. I'm already ready with it. When you call, I got the money right here. I'm lining it up, but lining the money up don't mean nothing if you don't take action. Oh, I got it lined up. Then why didn't you pull the trigger? That's what's weird. If you expected a call between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. for the kidnapper calling for your daughter, why had you not gone and got the money? And you were aligning yourself to get the money. You were calling people for the money. Why did you not have your boy bring over the money so you can be, and more money, so you can be ready to give the kidnapper your money, his money, so you can have your daughter back? That doesn't check out, man. Come on.
Patsy's handwriting was the only one that set off alarm bells, says an investigator closely involved with the testing of the ransom note. A Colorado Bureau of Investigation report concludes there are indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey, but the evidence falls short to support the definitive conclusion. Hunter's team asked the police to accompany them to Haddon's team's demonstration at the office of Mike Bynum. The tables were arranged in a horseshoe, says the insider, and 6 of the Ramsey attorneys were there watching the detectives watch their 2 handwriting experts. It was total BS. Hunter and DeMuth are nodding their heads in agreement as these guys are talking. Ramsey attorney Lee Foreman was seen giving DeMuth a back rub during a break.
Oh my God, what is this? I gotta calm down.
After the demonstration, Alex Hunter was overheard asking Hal Hatton, well, where should we go from here? Why are they showing unindicted, uncharged murder suspects all the evidence? The source asks. Is this some privileged discovery process available to rich Boulderites?
That's that O.J. Simpson. That's what that is. That is that O.J. Simpson treatment. No, hey, look, no disrespect to O.J. Simpson. I'm not trying to call him out like that. I'm just saying this superstar stuff that y'all get. Man, I was reading an article said O.J. Simpson was sitting up in there, with his own private room. Didn't even have to go out into Gen Pop. Didn't even have to sit out there as everybody else did, like the Menendez brothers did. They didn't have to sit out there where the guards are out there watching. You got the cops coming in, or the lawyers coming in, and y'all sitting around like y'all just buddy. Oh my God, there goes O.J. Simpson. He's in jail. Why is this happening? Why is he not being watched? That's that O.J. Simpson stuff. That's exactly what that is. Privileged.
Everything they have done is against the advice of the Boulder Police, the FBI, and the Attorney General's Capital Crimes Unit. It's cold outside, and I suggest that we find a late-night coffee shop. In the car, I can see the depth of this man's agitation. I have never seen politics and preferential treatment play such a major role in any case, he says.
Talk to me. This is unfathomable. This is wild. The level of interference that y'all are running to stop us from figuring out, are you trying to help me find the person who took your daughter? Are you trying to stand in my way? I can't tell. What is this? My goodness.
If the Ramseys had been some poor Mexican couple, they would have been in their face for a week, got a confession out of them, and filed first-degree murder charges against them within days. If we file or we don't file, these people are doomed, says District Attorney Alex Hunter. They have been tried and convicted in the court of public opinion.
It does not freaking matter. Who cares? Your job is to say, okay, man, we got all this on the outside. Let's just stick to the case. I don't care what the outside is doing. Prove them wrong. If we can't do anything, then prove them wrong. Oh man, but they already, because you did. Oh, but we did. We exonerated them, and you're still on their case because you didn't do it right. The heck?
It's not as if the police haven't committed their own share of blunders.
Sure.
In the first 48 hours, they made crucial mistakes, including not conducting a thorough search of the house, not separating the Ramseys and taking everyone down to the station for questioning, and not sealing the crime scene.
They couldn't. They tried to seal it several times.
In subsequent days, according to the source, Linda Art continued to speak regularly with Patsy and her close friends. In fact, in the first week of January, without permission from the department, Art gave Ramsey attorney Patrick Burke a copy of the ransom note. There should have been thunder rolling down the halls of the police department. And nothing happened, says one observer. She could be the Mark Furman of this case. In mid-May, Linda Art was taken off the case. Other public relations disasters ensued. Detective Division Commander John Eller, greatly admired by his team, but detested by the DA's office for his tenacity in pursuing the Ramseys, applied for the job of police chief in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Larry Mason, Linda Arndt's supervisor, who had been dismissed from the case in January, sued Eller for damaging his reputation. In June, Chief Tom Colby took a 2-week vacation in Houston, where it was widely rumored that should his old pal Lee Brown win election as mayor, he'd like to be the city's new police chief. Weeks earlier, the police union had voted no confidence.
Boy, we don't even know what we're doing. we can't even get this case together. We can't even get this case together, and y'all talking about, oh, I want to see what's going on in Houston. My God. It's like, this is the perfect time to commit this crime because it's the Christmas holidays. People talking about wanting to move jobs. People talking about coming back from vacation in Hawaii. Oh, I'm in vacation in Hawaii, so I really ain't got time to do that. I mean, does anybody want to solve the case? You can't talk to me unless I have this guy here with me. It's got to be under 90 minutes, and you got to give me all the stuff that you have. No, I freaking don't. No, I don't. Stop acting guilty and just answer questions. Man.
Confidence in their chief, and soon after, city manager Tim Honey, Kobe's good friend and biggest cheerleader, resigned. Kobe's idea of police work is social work, says the confidential source scornfully. Morale became so low that Mayor Leslie Durgan received an assurance from Kobe that he would see the case through. No matter what mistakes the police made, they have been exceptionally compounded by blunders and improprieties in the DA's office. By May, according to the confidential source, the police and the DA were conducting separate investigations. Hofstrom's team, he says, was committed to shielding the Ramseys, while the police were convinced that the Ramseys murdered their daughter and covered up the crime. The police, he added, had been supported throughout by the FBI and the CBI. These guys tell the cops they have never seen anything like this, he says, before reciting a litany of unprecedented actions by the DA. Murder suspects are routinely requested to submit to a polygraph test. But when detectives told Hofstrom to ask the Ramseys for one, he snapped. No way! They would only refuse. In May, Hofstrom's assistant, Trip DeMuth, sat down with Ramsey attorney Brian Morgan to formulate the first of a series of reward ads. These ran in a Boulder paper on June 1st. Later, the DA, responding to a barrage of criticism,
Please. Please. Make it more obvious that you're not going to do your job. Please, absolutely. Make it more obvious that you're not going to ask these people to submit to routine things that the cops ask of suspects. Please make it more obvious. Absolutely. No, we're not. I'm only saying it because they're not going to do it. That's all I'm saying. But did you ask? For the love of God, did you ask? Please, just do your job. Man, I'm sorry. This article is making me mad. I've already read through this article. I should not be getting this upset. I've already read this article. I should not be getting mad. I already know what it's going to say.
Admitted his office's involvement in the ad. By April, the police had decided that they could no longer share all of their information with the DA.
Thank you.
And that they would keep their most damning evidence to themselves.
Thank you.
In June, a war room computer was allegedly broken into. 2 weeks later, a statement from the CBI reported that there had been a glitch in the system. Nevertheless, says the confidential source, 3 experts told the detectives definitively that the computer was hacked.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, the police have considered asking the governor to bring in a special prosecutor, or simply arresting the Ramseys themselves. The affidavits for the arrest have been ready to serve since May, says the source. Perhaps foreseeing the possibility of a police mutiny, Hunter told me in June, the police could go to a judge without coming to me and submit an affidavit for an arrest warrant. They could.
You see how humans can get out of control. I want you to stop and take a second to think, why is there so much chaos and discord right now? If you can imagine what's happening here, it is not 2 people going blow for blow. Imagine a brawl where you have 2 people going at it, and then a third person comes in and they're on top of 2 people on one. But then, that other person who's being jumped, there comes in an individual. And then somebody who has nothing to do with, really any of the individuals or really what's going on. They just have aught against one person just because they think that person is a hypocrite. I don't really care that you're involved in this. sort of altercation, but I just know you're a hypocrite, and I've been waiting. My blood is pumping, my blood is flowing, and I've been waiting to get you back for something that you did to me 3 months ago. So they jump in, and then the spouse of this person sees them jumping in. It's like, oh, you're not about to jump on my spouse, and how dare you? And you're not going to get away with this. We are not. I want you to understand, we're no longer talking about the case. We're no longer focused on the case. We are out of bounds of JonBenét Ramsey. This has nothing to do with JonBenét Ramsey. You want to know why this case has never been solved? Because JonBenét, even though JonBenét's picture is up there plastered as slain young girl, JonBenét has nothing to do with this case. This case is now about the parents and politics between individuals who don't like each other. And now we have just had an opportunity. This is the perfect catalyst for these individuals who didn't like each other anyway to showcase, I never liked you anyway. And now you're doing this. It's perfect. That's why you see people quitting on both sides. It's indicative of bad attitudes to where people just like quit. It's like somebody being a sore loser and say something, you're losing at Uno or something like that, or basketball or what have you. And you're like, man, whatever, I'm not getting my way, or I'm not winning. And so instead of seeing the game through, they just quit. Steve Thomas did it. I get that. But Lou Smith also did it. He did as well. So that tells me something about Lou Smith. There's a drive of his emotions. He's not as level-headed. No disrespect to him. Respect to him. Rest in peace, young man. However, it shows that there is an emotional tie. There's an emotional component and piece that has now got in the way. And there's a bunch of fighting. This is about, it's a size contest between not just the DA, not just the police. It ain't even about that anymore. Now it's about the DA, the police, the outside attorneys, the governor, the public. It's about everybody now. And this is what this is what humans do. The motivation comes from now we have murky waters, and the motivation to move away from JonBenét. JonBenét is just a catalyst. And so now, and we're trying to bring it back to JonBenét, but this has nothing to do with JonBenét because people's egos have now gotten in the way. Not even about, how dare you, or, you're terrible at this case or something like that. But it's just more so, I don't like you. That's why this case is not solved. And that's why and that's the motivation for how people approach the case. We can see a clear divide in the cops like, you leaking all my information. Y'all broke in here. Y'all broke in my stuff and y'all leaked my information. You know what? Don't come back in here. Oh yeah? Well, don't come requesting anything from me either. This case is not going to get solved because of that.
Do that. But the DA would then say, that's great, but I'm not bringing charges. As I was leaving, Hunter mused aloud. If we file or we don't file, these people are doomed. They have been tried and convicted in the court of public opinion. Every week, the tabloids in every supermarket in America scream out their verdict on the Ramseys. Daddy did it. Benet autopsy. Mom and dad guilty. Handwriting evidence. Fingers Patsy. Mom wrote the ransom note. JonBenét. Shocker. Dad linked to Kitty scandals.
Y'all, I'm so mad. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm just frustrated. I am just extremely frustrated. I just, as an individual, hate being stopped. Like when I'm trying to do something and I'm in a good pace and I'm at a good track and I'm doing my thing, I'm in the flow, I'm in the zone. I hate like the little stutter steps, like that kind of stop you. Oh, look over here. Oh, look over here. I don't mind being like, okay, cool. I got that. I got that. That's fine. But I hate when it's something specifically designed to stop me. After I've been vocal about, okay, I get that, but I got to do this. I got to get this done. I got to figure this out. Then you start sending a bunch of stuff to stop me. That frustrates me. And I've been vocal with you about, okay, well, if I'm studying and I'm like, all right, man, I saw that. I really need to get this assignment done. I really do. And you're like, oh, well, let's go over here. Oh, well, did I really need to tell you this? That frustrates me. And that is the same way I feel about what I am hearing and what I am reading right now. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of who did what. And I'm being stopped by like a bunch of bickering over nothing. We are trying to collect valuable evidence and we cannot do it because there's bickering and infighting. And as you bicker and you fight, there is valuable evidence that is going out of the window. People are swooping in, taking it and removing it and throwing it away and discarding things, picking up different things and throwing it away so that you're not able to focus specifically on what you need to focus on. Distraction mechanism, discord, distraction, deflect.
JonBenét's mom knows the killer, her hubby. The Globe came up with graphic crime scene photos of the Ramsey house. But the National Enquirer held its own, publishing a chat with Patsy out shopping. While the Star ferreted out that a large amount of child inappropriate pictures have been downloaded on Access computers. In January, the Globe offered a reward of $50,000 for evidence leading to the arrest and conviction of the child's killer. That prompted the Ramseys to raise the $50,000 reward they had offered to $100,000. In July, the Globe upped the ante to $500,000. Citing unnamed sources within the investigation, the tabloids have laid out two primary theories. The first has it that John Ramsey killed his daughter after a inappropriate, intimate game went awry. The second posits that Patsy Ramsey walked in on her husband abusing the child, grabbed a heavy object, and swung at him, but hit her daughter by mistake. A variation on this theory has it that Patsy, in a rage, struck her daughter or threw her against a hard surface. Both theories suggest that JonBenét's death was not planned but accidental, and then elaborately covered up. And why have the Ramseys not sued? Perhaps because a murder defendant actually has more of a right to privacy than a liable plaintiff.
Yeah.
He can always take the Fifth Amendment. If he sues for libel, he loses the privilege. Whether the Ramseys are innocent or guilty, says First Amendment attorney Floyd Abrams, I would advise them not to sue because they are suspects and would have to answer the most intensive and intrusive questions. There is evidence to support certain contentions published in the tabloids. The autopsy report, released in full by court order in August, established that JonBenét died from a tremendous blow to the side of her head, which caused an 8.5-inch fracture, and from garroting. Dr. Richard Krugman, a specialist in child abuse, brought in as a consultant by Hunter's office, says that there was an abrasion on the child's body in the private area, which is a sign of trauma, but it's not a sign of inappropriate abuse necessarily. Dr. Cyril Wecht, a well-known forensic pathologist, has no doubt that the 45-pound child was indeed abused. If she had been taken to a hospital emergency room and doctors had seen evidence on her, her father would have been arrested, he said. The opening on a private area, according to Dr. Kirscher of the University of Chicago's pathology department, was twice the normal size for 6-year-olds. The injuries to her body indicate some sort of penetration, he says, but probably not by a male. And these are evidence of abuse that night as well as previous abuse. There were also blood and urine stains in her undergarments, a considerable obstacle to investigators, according to one well-placed source in the DA's office. Was the fact that the crime scene and the body were cleaned up, although not sterilized. Adding to the mishaps, the coroner didn't examine the body until 7 hours after it was discovered, and then spent only 10 minutes at the crime scene. Most stunning, according to some experts, was the revelation that the child had evidently been redressed after her murder. JonBenét's parents told investigators that she was wearing a red turtleneck pajama top when they put her to bed. She was found in a white one. A red turtleneck was in her bathroom sink. Navy blue fuzzballs adhered to her body, and investigators are searching for a match. Casting doubt on the theory that an intruder killed JonBenét were the state and position of the child's body. She was fully clothed and covered with one of her blankets. The ligatures around her neck and right wrists were, investigators say, very loose, consistent with staging. Moreover, there were no signs of forcible entry and no footprints in the melting snow around the house. Greg McCrary adds that certain types of people who deal with children inappropriately and ransom kidnappers never overlap. The people who deal with children inappropriately grab the child. They get what they need and discard them. Ransom kidnappers are in it strictly for the money, he says. Although the coroner did not specify the time of death, a neighbor told police that she had been awakened shortly after midnight.
Like I said, there's going to be some consistency in the crime and what we expect to see from the crime. There's going to be some consistency.
By a loud, piercing scream coming from the direction of the Ramsey house. The Ramseys told police they had heard nothing. John Ramsey's children from his first marriage, Melinda, 25, and John Andrew, 21, along with Melinda's boyfriend, Stuart Long, arrived at the Ramsey house at 7:55 p.m. on December 26. Ramsey ran to the curb to meet them. Long, a medical school graduate, told police that Ramsey had said that JonBenét had gone to heaven and that he had found her body at 11 a.m., although, according to police reports, he found the body at 1 in the afternoon. The following day, investigators videotaped an interview with John Andrew, at the conclusion of which they asked him what he thought an appropriate punishment for the person who committed this crime would be. After a long pause, he said, "Forgiveness." Incredulous, the detectives went into the brutality of his half-sister's murder and asked him to reconsider his answer. Another silence ensued. Then he said again, "Forgiveness." John Andrew Ramsey and Long declined to comment. End of part 2.
You said forgiveness. Two things. When they asked you, said, do you know what happened to your sister? And we are not even, okay, let's just take it, that it's an intruder. Do you know this is, listen to me. Listen to me. JonBenét is a defenseless 6-year-old little girl. I am positive that all of you out there under the sound of my voice, knowing that something heinous happened to JonBenét, would be ready to go to, in the immediate aftermath, would be ready to go to war over JonBenét, and she's not even your family member. But just the fact that somebody did that to an innocent, defenseless little girl is enough to make you go to war for somebody like JonBenét. But weird enough, in the immediate aftermath of somebody unaliving his sister, according to the reports of this article, this man said, what should be done? Forgiveness. I didn't hear you correctly. Let me let you know what actually happened. JonBenét, let me recount for you. JonBenét was grabbed. This individual took his time, and to find out that it was not one, but two grown men, according to the intruder theory, 2 grown men took their time abusing. I gotta have you think about this. This is disturbing, but I gotta have you think about this. 2 men. One distracted her, as we know, as we would say, with the pineapples to kind of calm her down. Led us to believe that everything was going to be fine and we just want the money. But you deceived us and turned it around and unalived her in the house after abusing her. While the other one just sat by and watched. And your immediate reaction is forgiveness. And you already heard the 11 a.m. Told the cops that you got home at 10 p.m. And they moved it up to 9. We clearly see you in the house having brought the baby up at 1 p.m. Telling your kids 11 a.m. I have so much to say. I have so much to say. People would be tearing the club up over this 6-year-old little girl who was defenseless. People would be tearing the club up if they had a shot. And you're telling me, even John at times said, oh, if y'all lock me in a room with him, and they know they better not, because if y'all lock me in a room with him, it's just, we may not even need a trial. Okay, John. Okay. But your son, his immediate knee-jerk reaction is forgiveness. Boy, you got some kind of, you sure got some kind of zen that we all need. Some inner peace that we all need. I need it. Send it my way. Where'd you find it? Some serious Phil Jackson inner peace. Phil Jackson. If some of you may know, Phil Jackson is the former coach of the Los Angeles Lakers and the Chicago Bulls. In Michael Jordan's era and Kobe Bryant's era and Shaquille O'Neal's era. And the story was that Phil had come in and he had, all of the guys in the Bulls squad sort of kind of practicing meditation to kind of, get that release and to kind of channel into that inner peace. Who knows? Maybe John Andrew met Phil Jackson along the way and was able to channel that inner peace. And maybe also Russell Simmons inner peace type stuff. For somebody that not only abused, tortured is the word I'm looking for. Tortured. I'm going to let it go. Tortured your sister. That's what it was. So, anyways, that's the video. Thanks for watching. I'm interested to hear your comments. You can say anything. I'm off. I'm wrong. This is bogus. It's a bunch of bull crap. I'm just interested. You like it, you love it. I'm interested to hear it all. I'm interested to chat with you on this. I want to chat with you guys on this one. I'm still reeling. I'm just upset. Like, share, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. And until next video, thanks for watching. Much love to you all. Have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great year. Take it easy.